Hi, and welcome back to Above Board with Candor Path. This is TheRichB. We've got John Kennedy and we've got Matt Marcoux. Matt, when you played sports in college, did they
Yes.
do that when you ran on the field? Matt
Every time.
Marcoux.
And they still actually do that. So before I go into a client meeting, we do a little bit of like a song and then some entrance music,
I have
and
a
then it's
smoke
Matt
machine.
Marcoux.
I have a smoke machine for Matt. He asked me to do that. He wants to run through a banner every day.
I love that. Hey, do you guys like my Padre Pio mug? It's so Catholic of me. Look, I've got my Padre Pio mug. It says, "Pray, hope, and don't worry. Worry is useless. God is merciful and will hear your prayer." Isn't that sweet? I do that to remind myself to be.
Is that what
I
the
know.
podcast is about today? That's a good way to
It
lead
is not. But this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is a celebratory podcast, is it not?
It's
Yes.
episode 60, and it's an emergency podcast because we're recording it on New Year's Eve, and we wanted it to go before the end of the year because I had a goal of getting episode 60 out before the end
John
of the year.
and his goals. Is that what we're talking about today?
Yeah,
you
John
and your
and his
insane goals?
Drink 17 gallons of water a day and walk 17 miles and all that. Because
I'm on
so
day 5 of
narrows.
75 hard, by the way. I'm doing it again.
I can't
We
take
can talk
you
about
with
that
this.
later.
We can all have a support group that we all have to then deal with John, who's angry because he's worked out twice and is eating only dietary foods. And
yeah, when you text John, "Hey bro, miss you, how you doing?" You go, "Okay." And they're like, "Oh, 75 hard." I got a 1-letter response from freaking John, my best friend over there.
Too busy.
Okay. So listen, this is our 60th podcast and we're really super excited. And there's another thing, recent metrics, not matrix. That's another thing. Recent metrics have shown that we are in a kind of a high level of the podcast world. Are we not, John?
Yeah,
I think we are.
We're 1% or 2%, something like that. I haven't looked at it in a while, but
we
we're trending in the right direction.
We are in the top 1 or 2% of podcasts in the universe of all podcasts, which is most impressive, I would say. So congratulations to us three. And we just want to kind of end the year talking about what we want to talk about. So I just want to know in general, do you guys feel like in relationships, the relationships in your own life, the relationships around you, do you feel like everything's always equitable?
Ooh,
waiting for names.
Matt, do you want to take that one first?
Jeez, man. Talk about coming in hot. That wasn't on our pre-call, was it?
I wasn't paying attention because the risk of doing an emergency podcast is our children are home, and Hudson walked in full on head to toe dressed as the Hulk and just walked in and looked at me and she slammed the door and ran away.
Oh my gosh.
Great. Anyway, Matt, go ahead. Take it away, please.
I just wondered, do you think
most definitely no, it's not equitable and it's not meant to be. I think in a healthy relationship, there are times when, and this goes in, I think, a business relationship. I think this goes in a personal. There's times that one person's always going to be doing more. I think it goes back to the remember the work-life balance conversation we had. It wasn't a little tiff we had, Rich, which by the way, we disagreed a little bit, but we didn't have a tiff. But you said there's no such thing as work-life balance. And I think what your point was is that there really isn't. You're striving for it. And I think if we take that same concept to the question you just posed in talking about equitable relationships, it's not. Do we strive to have that? We strive to. But there's always going to be someone pulling more weight because a lot of times it's situational. And if you have, in my situation where my wife is the caretaker of our family, there are certainly more times that she's pulling way more weight than I am. And I think a lot of it comes to do with the fact that I work in the financial services industry. At times I work from home. And so there are some days where I'm like, today I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to Chipotle for lunch. Well, when she's got children at home, there's no like, hey, kids, like fend for yourself. I'm going to step out and go do something. So in those situations, I think it's inequitable. Then there's other situations where let's talk tax season where I'm buried up to my brains in work and I'm overdoing it. And I still walk out of that office door and my clothes are there and my dinner is made. And that's not the only thing she does, by the way. There's far more things, but in a very simplistic state, I walk out and I can just join the family and everything is normal. So I do not believe it's equitable, but I think we strive for it, that we're all pulling our own weight. And I think that even goes into the relationship I have with Johnny here. On a business relationship, there are weeks where this guy is putting in way more time and doing way more, maybe high level things. And then there's weeks where I have 12 or 15 meetings and I'm just buried up with it. And so there's a yin and the yang side of that part of it as well. So
So
we strive for it.
right,
Do we ever achieve it? I would say 100% of the time it's not achieved, but
right.
striving for it is, I think, what keeps the relationships healthy. Ooh, that
So
was a
then,
I
do
little, I
you
think
just said
think
a
I
lot
think
John?
there.
that I think that. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you. No, go
No,
ahead,
no, no.
John. You're
Sorry.
probably.
Ask your
No, I was
question.
just going to. I was
Jeez,
just
guys,
going to
this is our
ask.
first podcast. Everyone's talking over each other. Goodness
Jesus,
gracious.
man.
I don't know, but my
So-
son's walking around blowing a kazoo, like those little like horns for like New Year's Eve. So I am wildly distracted. It is hilarious what's happening behind the scenes in the Kennedy
Yeah,
household.
get a grip on your family,
Those are
bro. We're
called
doing a
kazoos,
podcast.
right?
They are called because. Well, I haven't
Those are
seen it.
kazoos, the little
You're
New Year's.
professional.
Yeah, like you know.
Yes, they're
So
called
Yes.
kazoos.
the word that was coming up for me while you were talking about that is trust. So
Oh,
as it relates to you and I and working together, or my wife and I think there is a high degree of trust in one another that if so I don't know if you guys have adopted this yet. We still do this whole, we've talked about this on earlier episodes of the podcast, where like on a scale of 0 to 100%, you come home after work and you go, I got 10. Like I'm on E. I got a very little to give. And when Jackie communicates to me, John, I got 10% today, I know, like, all right, I'm stepping in. Like, I got this. I'm stepping in. And you step up for each other in that way. When your spouse communicates to you, your partner communicates to you, hey, I don't have everything that I can give today or tonight. Like you almost, for me anyway, I feel like this extra kick of like, I really want to step in because I know that she's down. And it might be daunting if 4 days straight she comes home and she's like, I got nothing, I got nothing, I got nothing. Or on the flip side, if I do that to her. But I think that the trust is there such
Mhm.
that I know that that's not like someone taking advantage of me. That's someone that is dealing with burnout or tired from work or whatever's going on, and that they need me. I need to step in as the spouse. So, and I think on the work front, I don't know, Matt and I, like, I don't think of it like that. Because even though we're business partners, we work remotely a lot of the times, and so it's not the same. We're not like raising kids, but we're building a business. And if there's a stretch where I'm really busy, and he's on vacation, or he's got 12 to 15 meetings and I'm on vacation, I don't know that we really see it that way, because we know that the trust is there. Like, there's never that concern, so for me, it's like, is there an inequity at times? Always. I feel like, but maybe over a long stretch of time it balances out, but that can only exist with trust, I think.
So, do you think that a lot of people in relationships, whether they're interpersonal relationships of any type, well, I guess they're all interpersonal relationships, business relationships, marriage relationships, family relationships, do you think that a lot of people have arguments or disagreements because, and this is going to be like kind of a two-part question, because there is a perceived inequity, like that people feel, hey, I'm doing so much and I'm not being appreciated, or you're not doing enough. Do you think that within, and I want to make this for both, because there might be some people that aren't in a relationship right now, so I don't want to turn them off. And there might be people that don't have a business partner, so I don't want to turn them off. So either way, business relationships, you and Matt as an example, marriage relationships, or significant other relationships, do you think that there's a lot of fights, disagreements, or arguments, or anxiety or angst, whatever, that is around this inequity?
I think so. I mean, I think it's not true. Even if you're in a healthy relationship and the trust exists, there are times where you get argumentative or you get frustrated about a situation. I know I do. I mean, life is we are in it right now. We have two young
Right.
children. We're
Mhm.
hustling and bustling, going all over the place, bringing our kids everywhere, taking them to experience things with them. We both work. I, like you guys, I mean, I think the three of us think about work 24/7. Rich, you've been really, really knee deep in your work a lot lately. Matt and I know I speak for you in this situation, Matt, but like, it's never off. It's not like you can turn the off switch on it. So I think even in healthy relationships that can happen. But for me, sometimes I just got to take a beat and like, I got to walk outside and like take a
So
15-minute walk.
so you brought up trust, and so Matt, John brought up that it's a matter of trust, so that you're trusting that the other person's not going to take advantage, or hey, I'm 0%, I'm 0%, I'm 0%, so the other person's doing everything. Matt, what do you think about this? Because this is what comes up for me, because I do agree that there has to be a level of trust. I think there also has to be, so you guys know, I'm in the process of writing a book on leadership, title to be determined. But uh, in this, I talk about leaders and the difference between being compassionate, between compassion and empathy. So where empathy is you feel for somebody, um, Matt got a flat tire. I'm driving by. Oh, poor guy. That sucks. Compassion is more when you feel with them. And usually compassion is what leads to more action. So I feel compassion towards Matt getting a flat tire. So I pull over and I help him change it. Empathy is when you watch the news and you hear about a family whose house burnt down. Oh man, that sucks, those poor people. Compassion is, wow, that sucks, those poor people. What was the GoFundMe page so I can send them, $20? So Matt, do you think in relationships, business or personal? So I won't keep saying that. I'll just say relationships, and the audience can connect. They can relate, not compare. Do you think that it's important that there's a sense of, obviously there's trust, but a sense of compassion? Do you find that to
I
be an
think there
important
is
part of it?
because you got to put yourself sometimes in other people's shoes, and there's external influences at time, and so you've got to take that into consideration when communicating, when working with somebody else again, and whether it is in a business relationship or in a personal relationship. I certainly think that there needs to be compassion because I think because of the outside influences
What
that
do you think? What do you think gets in?
either
What do you think?
stress a person out.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I want to interject while you're talking because I want you to stay on the same track. What gets in the way of that? Because you say it's important. So when it
But
falls
you
short,
you thinking that you're more important? Yeah, your issues are more important than the other person's issues, as opposed to saying, "Let me put myself in that situation and see if I can empathize or see if I can be compassionate to what." And that's, I mean, something I think we all struggle with because our my problems are more important than everyone else's problems is often the default. And if you can step away from that for a moment and realize the world does not revolve around you and that there's other people in the situation. Heck, if you only think that way, then you're never going to be in a relationship, both
hmm,
personal or business. So you've got to have that level of compassion, or else the world just revolves around you and no one's going to want to be around you if that's the case. As an only child, I'll give a very large footnote. That is something I struggle with because as an only child, the world revolved around me for the first 18 years of my life. And I didn't have to really worry about too many people. That was a skill I needed to learn. And that's a skill I'm still learning at times, is that I need to be compassionate. I need to think about other people. I need to not just think of myself. And that is something I struggle with, in that thankfully, it's not something that comes out too often these days. Johnny, is that an accurate
Lauren and
statement?
I
Like
have our own support
Lauren's
group
not here
for
to
we have our
as
own
she
support group for
listens.
you.
Yeah, as she listens to this podcast in a week or two in her car, as she typically does after they're posted, I'll definitely get some feedback. But I think she'll agree with that.
I love Lauren. What were you going to
Well,
say,
what
John?
I was gonna share, well, it down the similar vein. I think so. I have a lot of compassion to give, and I think our job lends to that. We're in very meaningful conversations with clients. I have conversations where a spouse passed away, someone got a bad diagnosis, a client recently lost a grandchild. I mean, these
Oh
are
my
these are
God.
heavy. These are
Terrible.
heavy discussions, and so you're and some of them aren't that heavy, but all day long, if you have a meeting where it's just or a day where it's meeting after meeting all day long, you're for me, this is the world according to me. I'm giving out energy, like my compassion, my empathy. I'm listening. We're talking through it. I'm crying along with clients sometimes, and then I come home and I'm like a zombie because I'm exhausted from doing that. And I don't know if I'm explaining this well or not, but like I think I'm trying to tie all of this in, where it's like, is there an equity in a relationship? Do you find that you might be argumentative or whatever? Like, well, for me, maybe sometimes, because I've heard Jackie say before, like, um, if I'm not paying attention to a story she's telling me or something, it's not because I don't want to pay attention, but it's because I've been in 4 meetings today that all had this level of heaviness and weight to it, that I'm like, I got no, I don't. It's like almost like my compassion tank is empty and I don't have any
Yeah.
left.
That's really
And
common. I think that might be common to our job, John, because that I'd say like one of the things that Lauren and I at times is, you're not listening. You didn't listen. This event occurred and you were supposed to be there or something like that. And you weren't listening to me. And I think that's the excuse I use, at least. It may not be accurate, but it's like I listened to 4 people today, we call it financially undress at times, right? Like show everything, like here's where I'm at and what do I do and here's my problems. And that's part of the job that I absolutely love. But you're right, when I get home, especially if I've had 3 or 4 meetings, I've talked 6
all
hours,
day.
of
Yeah.
those meetings, and I don't want to talk anymore. And I don't want, and listening is hard sometimes. And so it takes it takes a very active, um it's very active on my part to then say, okay, I'm going to sit down and listen to the story, and I'm going to be proactive in that conversation when we've done it all day long. And I think it really is an excuse. That's not an acceptable way, because a spouse doesn't want to hear that
Yeah.
you're not listening to me. This is the time that we have together. But I do agree that's probably a characteristic of our trade.
I've also identified about myself roughly 5 or so years ago that I am an introvert, and I never knew that about myself. And I would tell people that, and they're like, "No, there's no way. You love talking to people. We do this podcast, but that's not really how an introvert is defined. An introvert is somebody who introvert extrovert to me is about where you collect your energy from. And so for me, I get energy from being able to recharge my batteries, be alone, read a book, be in peace and quiet. And I have a friend that is literally the exact opposite. Like he can't stand that, and he needs to be around other people, and he gets infused with energy when he's around people. He loves it. And so I think I'm an introvert. I know that about myself, and I have 4 meetings where I have to sort of maybe play a role of an extrovert. I have to be able to really dig deep because they're dealing with the situation. And I am a compassionate person, so I'm there for them in that. And then you come home and you're exhausted. So I don't think it's I think recognition is important, Matt, in that situation. We're just
So do you think
recognizing that
so
that's the
And,
so
and
situation.
Rich, you're unique in this because you travel for a living. So
yeah.
we're both staying at, we both have 4 meetings at our office or in our home, and then we pop out our door and enter the family. You go days without seeing a family member or a partner, right? I mean, you work fairly solo.
Yeah.
I think from what
Yeah.
I know about what you do, and we don't really talk too much about your external job, but you work by yourself. You're a major extrovert in terms of what you do for a living, and then you get on an airplane or go back to a hotel room, and it's just you there sometimes, right? How does that work with almost the complete opposite job that we have at times?
Yeah, it's funny. I was going to ask you, and it's funny you already said it. I was going to ask you guys if you think of me as an introvert or an extrovert, and I assume you both think of me as an extrovert. And it's
I
funny.
do, yes.
Yeah, and I've
100%.
learned over the years that I am an introvert pretending to be an extrovert. And I know that sounds like BS because of what I do for a living, because I'm a public speaker. I mean, the last speaking engagement I had in Pittsburgh, the present audience was 1,100 and the online audience was 500. So there was technically 1,600 people listening to me. And I know that probably scares the heck out of a lot of folks. And I was up there for 70 minutes. So that was all me. And I loved it. And it was great. I have no fear of that. But I I actually have that weird mix of being in front of thousands of people or hundreds or dozens sometimes, and then being completely alone. And when I wake up in the morning and, my teenager's still asleep and my younger daughter is maybe playing with her friend on her iPad and Dawn's at the gym, and I sit at the table and I keep my gratitude journal, I noticed that I went back over the last month of my journal, and I noticed that grateful I wrote quiet morning or peaceful house or quiet. And it's interesting because I've never heard that before, John, what you just said, that an introvert is or you're defined by where you get energy from. And yet when I talk to like a therapist and different people like that, I'm not a phony, but I pretend to be. I think I believe that I'm supposed to be an extrovert. Like when we all get together with our friends and like Wes, who's like really funny, and then Matt's, I don't know if you guys noticed that I'm not the center. I kind of pull back a little bit, whereas I'm used to being the one that's kind of the comedian and all that kind of stuff. So I think I struggle a little bit with that as a matter of fact. I don't know if that's a total sidebar to what we're talking about, but I want to take it back to that piece about compassion in as leaders and compassion in our relationships. Um, I I make sure, or I'm trying to be more compassionate as a husband, as a father, and as an employee, or as a worker, and doing what I do. How do you guys, as leaders, how do you feel that you demonstrate compassion for your teams that you lead? How do you do it? Like, Matt, I'll go to you first. How do you show compassion for the people that work at your at Candor Path?
I think in a number of ways, but one is being a good listener, being available for them. Not being too good to listen to an employee, to take positive and negative feedback, and I think listening and communicating is one way that I try to show. We just rewarded the whole team with we had it was a really tough year in the market. Let's be honest. It was a tough year in the financial services industry. We worked really really hard for our clients this year. Our team worked really really hard for our clients this year to make sure that there was a high level of communication while the markets were moving up and down, and there was a lot of capitulation in terms of performance. And so we wanted to reward our team this year. Now, John and I are the senior members of our company. We're the co-founders. I think John and I probably, to reward the team, would have liked to go for John made this joke, a nice walk on the nature trail and look at birds. Right? We're the older,
That's next year.
you
I
know,
can't
like
do what we just did.
Yeah, that'd go over
yeah.
great.
So to have but it's not about us, right? That's what John and I would have liked to have done, is like a nice long quiet walk on the beach and like a glass of wine. That's not what our team wants. Our team is young, and they like doing fun things. And so we and I'll credit our director of operations, Megan, for setting this up. But we took the team to Universal Studios, the theme park here in Orlando, and did a basically back to back to back to back to back, say that 11 times, back to back to back to back, ride after ride of as many roller coasters as we could fit in a single day. That
I
is
have vertigo right now just thinking
that
about
is the complete
what we
opposite
did.
of a reward for me and John. Now, we had a fantastic time, and I'm not poo-pooing on the actual event itself. That's just, we showed compassion. I think what you're getting to is like, where can we do that in work? Is we looked at what the team would like to do, not what John and I would like to do, and give a really good reward and have an amazing day. And we had a fantastic time. So none of it was not exciting. Hindsight being 2020, 12 roller coasters in 8 hours is too many. Okay, it's
You know,
just
There's a
I
it's just
video. There's a video of me with my hands up in the air screaming on the first roller coaster, like so excited. And by the second roller coaster, I'm laying down on a bench, like with my hands on my face.
I
I
hate
had the
roller
worst headache
coasters.
that night.
Oh my god, I hate
I
roller
couldn't do
coasters so much.
anything. So again, I think going back to that is, what can we do to reward our team for a year in which was really really difficult? Let's do something truly for them, not for us, for them. Now, we had a really good time, but again, that was something that we're like, what would they really like to do? And so that's one small token that we could give to just the
So
most amazing team that we're surrounded by.
it's something that I talk about in one of my talks, where I talk about the difference between a gift and a present. Now, just to be clear, this is not the actual definition. This is Rich's definition. A gift is something I want you to have, and a present is something that you want to have. So, using Christmas as an example, we often ask our kids to make Christmas lists. That's their presents. That's the things that they want. From time to time, we give our kids something that we think they want, and sometimes that works well, and sometimes, you give, your teenager a pair of sneakers, and you can see them politely kind of turning them, and you realize, ooh, they didn't, that's not, and you're like, hey bro, is that good? And they're like, well, no, no disrespect, but can we take these back? You're, oh, okay. A present is something a person wants. So, for example, a gift, you guys as a gift would have said, hey, let's all go for a walk and drink some wine. They would have been like, that's boring. A present is, what do you guys want to do? And they go, we want to go have some fun. We want to go do some team building. We want to go on roller coasters. So I think what I'm hearing from you, and how I'm dissecting it a little bit and maybe distilling it, is that we show compassion by listening. And by listening, we determine from our teams and the people around us what it is that they need to feel fulfilled. And we show compassion by giving that to them, so that they feel seen and heard, listened to, and that what we're giving to them has a meaning that is meaningful to them. There's never anything wrong with giving somebody a gift. If I give John, a I don't know, a vase, a vase. I don't know how you say it. A flower holding glass piece of art. He might go, "Oh, thanks." And I'm like, "Oh, I saw this. I thought it was really cool." But if I give John a really cool cigar or like a really nice Irish whiskey or something that I think that's something that I know that John likes, then that might cause some different reactions. So what I'm hearing from Matt is giving people, listening to them with in a compassionate way, and giving them something that's meaningful to them, to show them their value and that they're seen or heard. And we could do that the same thing in our relationships. If you give your significant other a sweater, and they don't want a sweater, but what they really wanted was they want perfume, or they want cologne, or they want a night out, then that's a different thing. So John, what about you? How do you feel about, or how do you
Well, I've had a
demonstrate
lot of time
compassion?
to think about my answer. I've had a lot of time to think about my answer. And my
Are you
first
saying
answer
we talk too
is
much? Is that what you're saying? No,
is
just,
yes. No, that's not what I was. That's not what I was saying. I was gonna. It was actually to preface the fact that my answer is the same as his, which is listen. I think that is that's actually what I wrote down when you were asking the question, and I thought you were going to throw it to me first, but you threw it to Matt first. So we were going to say the same thing. Listen. But in the time that I had to think about it, I'd like to share that as a team, every time we bring someone new onto the team, we do a new personality assessment. It's called 16 personalities, I think, is the one that we use.
I've been told I
And
have
we
that
all
many.
retake it. We all retake that test, which is weird because a year ago my personality changed. I was surprised it was a different, but it's it's introvert, it's extrovert. Are you a defender? Are you an advocate? Are you there's all these different like terms that they use. And I find that that's really important because everyone's personality is very different. And so, although listening is important, there are certain approaches that I take differently depending on how, at least as I'm getting to know them and how they answer their personality assessment, how they would receive something. And so, something that we talk about a lot, and I think we're going to do an episode on probably next month, is win or learn, not win or lose. So showing compassion to if someone maybe, I can't really think of an example because our team's been like rock stars these last few months. But if there's an example where someone maybe didn't do something right, is that a loss, or do we take that as an opportunity to learn from something? And so that's what came up for me. But I literally wrote down listen as you were asking that question,
Well,
and
I
that's
love
what Matt
that.
answered. So it's
And
beautiful. There's no reason to overstate it.
no, I love that. And, I always make the joke that I remember as a nurse manager one time, I had a coworker who was another nurse manager. And her thing was whenever somebody did, not something like some not minor. I don't mean to say that, but if someone got a nice letter or a comment from a patient or from a colleague, she would give them a Snickers bar. And that was just her thing because her favorite candy bar was a Snickers bar. And I distinctly remember one time being with her talking, and she said, "Oh, walk with me. One of my employees get this really nice letter." I was an administrator, so I walked over, and the employee knew me. I'm like, "Hey, how are you?" And the boss, the manager, says, "Hey, congratulations, you got this really sweet letter. Here's a Snickers bar." The employee puts her hands back, and she goes, "I'm allergic to peanuts." And I remember thinking to myself, "Well, here's an EpiPen," and it's just like, it was a disconnect because the manager meant well. She was giving something from her heart that she thought would be meaningful, but it showed a disconnect that she's had this employee for several years. And now, not that everybody has to know everybody's medical background, but it was fairly commonly known in that department that this employee had a peanut allergy. And I just remember thinking to myself, and she was, "Oh, I'm so sorry for," and I think she even said, "I forgot," or whatever. My point is that no criticism towards her for doing that, but that goes to your point of listening and being aware. And at some point,
Mm.
We can make a mistake by showing gratitude or appreciation, and it can be read wrong or misunderstood, or someone could take it wrong just because it doesn't connect to that person. So I don't know. I just thought that it was kind of an
Well
interesting. I
said.
know we kind of went a little bit in a slightly different direction with this, but I just think it's really interesting, especially both of you guys as business owners. And in this very tough environment we have right now, where there's so many people leaving their jobs, there's so many people doing career change, there's so many people struggling right now with where they work and the work that they do. And there's also, I mean, I know several couples that are struggling and having difficult times right now. I think a lot of people are having a tough time. And I think compassion is kind of the kind of word of the day for me. I think it's something that is important in leadership. It's something that's important in relationships, and that maybe we can enter 2023. Those that are listening, just ask yourself the question: how can I be more compassionate in my conversations? How can I be more compassionate in my relationships with my kids? How can I be more compassionate to my significant others? How can I be more compassionate to my colleagues and coworkers? And if you're a leader, definitely, how can you be more compassionate? High performers in your organization are going to stay because not because, you know, you're paying them 50 cents more than the business down the street, but because they feel listened to, seen, heard, and cared about. And I think that's oftentimes something that's misunderstood. So as we wrap up our 60th podcast, I just want to say, I know it's very hard with our schedules for the three of us to get together, but I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to be with you guys. I am very grateful for both John and Matt, their friendship. I'm grateful for them having my back and just being wonderful. I want to sincerely, in front of our audience of thousands, I want to thank you guys for being really good friends and really great examples. And I'm grateful for what you bring to my life. So thank you guys both.
Well, thank you for both of you for doing this emergency podcast recording for me. As I looked at it, and I'm like,
Jeez, John.
we have no space to record episode 60. We're doing it on New Year's Eve. And what was fun about this, just to share with the audience, we went over. We did a quick pre-call before we recorded it. We went over 4 different really great episode ideas. And then we couldn't land on any one of them. And I said, I'm just going to click record and let Rich open. And just, Rich, you just take it wherever you want to. And you crushed it, man. You crushed
I don't know if I crushed it.
So welcome back.
I appreciate that. Matt, thank you, buddy, for all you do. You're just such a great guy. And I appreciate so much about you. Matt, I just want to say thank you.
You know, I am Rich. I really am. No, I'm just
Well,
kidding.
There's that single child.
Our kids both
Just
attend
kidding.
our kids both attend the same dojo and take karate.
Yeah.
And Matt's son is a black belt now. My son's a secondary black belt. My son teaches. And Matt, you gave me such a nice compliment saying that Luke does such a great job teaching the younger kids.
He's awesome.
And literally that week, I wanted to share with you two separately, unknown to each other, at 2 separate days. One came up to my wife, one came up to the sensei, who then emailed us, gave a comment about Luke and said how great he is and how he makes the kids feel comfortable. And I just wanted to end by saying that the compliment was he really listens and cares about them. And I thought, wow, as we're sitting here talking about leadership and compassion, that it made me feel good to know that my little guy, my son, my 13-year-old, who's not so little, he's almost as tall as me now, is living that. But thank you for saying that, Matt, because
he's a great kid.
All your kids are great. All our kids are great. So anyway, happy 2023 to everybody. May this year be blessings to you and in regards to prosperity and health and good things. And we thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Please share it. Please share it with other people. It would mean a lot to us. So on behalf of Matt, John, and I, and all of us the three Stooges here on Above Board with Candor Path, thank you for being here. Happy New Year. And we'll see you soon for episode 61.